Hey kitties, it's Triple Feature Tuesday once again, and this week we're wrapping up Halloween month with Dude, You're Just Gay.
Gay, totally gay, be a bright and shining rainbow.
That's right, we're going to look at 3 movies in which the supernatural is an extended and or strained metaphor for homosexuality, and man, if the main character had just come out to themselves, so many lives would have been lost. It's kind of fun. It kind of brings us back around to the opening of this October's triple features, where werewolfism was a metaphor for puberty. The supernatural, the occult, is presented as the other, and if you watch the way that the main character, especially, but then with other characters as well, interact with each other. They probably are talking about something else while, they're viciously murdering people. So, our menu is going to go in order of increasing swaths of destruction. As such, our menu is Gozu, A Nightmare on Elm Street Part 2, Freddy's Revenge, and Nightbreed. Gozu is one of my favorite movies, and I don't watch it nearly as often as I should, considering it's one of my favorite movies, but it's because it's subtitled. Because it's a Japanese film. It's Takashi Miike's film from around 2003. It's the only, the elevator pitch of this movie would be, imagine the guys that made Audition doing their level best Twin Peaks impression. And, after you collect yourselves from knee-jerk throwing up at the horror of just the idea, the movie itself is delightful. Written by Sakichi Sato, you would best know him from his acting. He is the Charlie Brown waiter in Kill Bill when Oren Ishii is partying in the fancy club with the 6, 7, 8s. Gozu is about a Yakuza named Minami, who is tasked with driving his Yakuza mentor Ozaki out to Nagoya and having him killed and taken out of the business because Ozaki has gone completely insane, as evidenced by him telling a joke by saying that a small dog is actually a Yakuza attack dog, and then proceeding to viciously murder the dog. I'm talking about, it's like this, if it's not a Pomeranian, it's the size of a Pomeranian, and at one point he is literally swinging the leash as hard as he possibly can. Trigger warning for dog people. So Minami doesn't want to do this because he has great affection for Ozaki to a much larger degree than even he understands himself at this point, but we'll get to that later. But in driving him out there, there's weird events, and he accidentally ends up killing Ozaki accidentally by stopping the car too quickly and Ozaki breaking his neck or cracking his skull. He ends up dead. And so Minami stops at a restaurant to make sure that he gets directions to the place where he's supposed to dump the body, and has a violent bout of food poisoning. Goes back to the car and finds out or notices that Ozaki's body is gone, and nobody has an explanation for it, let alone Minami. And then what follows for the next hour or so of the film is Minami going around Nagoya trying to find Ozaki's body, which may or may not still be alive, depending on who you talk to. And the people he talks to are very, very strange. There's the restaurant that he got poisoned at, which has an entirely trans waitstaff, one of whom may have been dead for several years. We have 2 people that are perpetually there on the phone, bothering other people. His local gangster guide, Nozuchi, has got some sort of weird skin pigment issue where he kind of looks like Eclipso from DC Comics. he stays at this inn run by a brother-sister outfit. The brother barely talks, he just kind of grunts things. The sister at various times uses the brother as a medium when she's not, excessively lactating and bottling the milk to sell to the local children. Minami ends up getting some information from the American wife of the local liquor store owner who is reading everything she's saying in Japanese off of cue cards that are written out phonetically all around the ceiling, which was a funny result of the actress, just honest to God, couldn't get a handle on the Japanese, so they wrote everything out for her, and Mike just thought it was kind of hilarious to just keep that in. Then he finds out that that Ozaki is actually dead. Like he gets the report, he is dead. The dump that was supposed to take the body got the body, processed it. And when I say processed it, it's a Yakuza dumping site. So they skin the body, they freeze dry the skin because you're going to want to save all those tattoos, for our records later. And so mission accomplished and stuff, except that when Minami goes back to his car, there's a woman that claims to be Ozaki. Don't worry. Gets more confusing from here. The girl version of Ozaki convinces Minami that it is actually him/her, and she is coming on to him for the whole rest of the movie. She wants to hook up with Minami, and Minami is very conflicted about this. And here is where we get the trouble about, the gay panic. Minami not wanting to accept the fact that when Ozaki was alive as a man, he had more than just brotherly affections for him. He was actually attracted to him. And now this has been manifested by this female version of Ozaki, who is, again, just trying to hook up with Minami, but he's not having it. He brings, for some reason, no, he goes back home. Trust me, if I'm not making sense, the movie makes even less sense, but it's highly entertaining. But stick with me, I promise. He goes home, he brings the girl version of Ozaki with him. She busts into a meeting with the big head Yakuza boss and says that she is from the local gang in Nagoya and wants to, strengthen ties and work for them as, the local representative or the ambassador, one way or the other. The big Yakuza boss is totally into this idea, especially when girl Ozaki comes onto him, and so they go off to go have sex, which drives Minami nuts, and again, showing that he is desperately trying to, figure out his feelings for him. So he interrupts the Yakuza boss trying to have sex with girl Ozaki, which is kind of involved because at this point in his advanced age, he can only get an erection by sticking one of several ladles into his rectum. And all of them are kept in miniature volcanoes. So Minami interrupts the activities because he wants Ozaki for himself. Him and the Yakuza boss have a fight. The Yakuza boss ends up being killed by being electrocuted through the ladle. And Minami takes Ozaki away, and he's finally ready to accept that he has feelings for his Yakuza brother that are more than just, partner, buddy, the gang camaraderie. And so they start to have sex. And that's when Minami feels a hand grabbing him from inside of the girl Ozaki. And then man Ozaki crawls out of girl Ozaki's vagina, covered in goo, freaking out from the whole thing. Now guy Ozaki can be alive again because Minami has accepted his feelings for him. But also, girl Ozaki is alive as well, and the last shot of the film is all three of them walking away happy together. And all of this is, peripheral to the cow-headed guy that shows up in the middle of the film and gives the film the title, Cowhead. That's what Gozu means. But as you can see, Minami's confusions over his feelings for Ozaki erupt in this Twin Peaks-esque adventure and then come to a head with the creation of a female version of the man that he is actually in love with. And then once he accepts it, the male version of the man he's in love with can exist again, because he's been heterosexual for so long. He's not actually just gay. He is probably more bisexual. And again, cowhead with the most disgusting tongue. I've probably forgotten like 5 other things that happen in this movie that are completely berserk, but Gozu. It's really something. And next up we have Nightmare on Elm Street Part 2, which, for the longest time I didn't like this movie because with any big horror franchise, there's always your outlier film. This would be like your Halloween 3, your Friday the 13th Part 5, or probably more realistically, Friday the 13th Part 6. Your Fast and the Furious Tokyo Drift, the one that doesn't really fit well, because in this one, Jesse and his family have moved into 1428 Elm Street. Rather than Freddy attacking Jesse through his dreams, when Jesse falls asleep, he transmogrifies into Freddy Krueger. And so it's actually a lot more like an Amityville possession-y type of thing than your normal garden variety Nightmare on Elm Streets. But as I kept watching it over the years, because, if you're going to do a marathon, you got to do a marathon right, I started to notice that there's not so subtle indication that Jesse's problems may have less to do with the supernatural and more to do with him not understanding that he's actually gay. And I was pleased as punch when the rest of the internet seemed to agree with me. So it's always fun to get validation like that. But so Jesse is presented as a heterosexual high schooler, but everything about the way he interacts with his purported love interest, Lisa. Jesse's played by Mark Patton. His love interest is Kim Myers. And he is really, he clearly has affection for her as a friend, but he's really not trying to do anything with her. He is much more preoccupied with Grady, played by Robert Russler of Weird Science fame. Fun fact, Robert Downey Jr. actually drove Robert Russler to his audition for this movie. All of the normal high school romance, I don't like you until I like you behaviors are all Jesse and Grady. And much in the same fashion that Jesse is not trying to hook up with Lisa, Grady's not trying to hook up with any other girl. Like, there's another girl that's Lisa's friend that sort of expresses interest, but just watch the cafeteria scene where Grady is talking with his mouth full and filling his mouth up more and more with food to just come off as the most obnoxious guy ever before he admits to being grounded for throwing his grandmother down a flight of stairs. And then you have all of the weird little background things, like Jesse and Grady's gym teacher hangs out at S&M bars, and Jesse accidentally ends up there, and it's like everybody's clad in leather and studs, and Robert Shea, the founder of New Line Cinema and producer of the movie, is there in a cameo as the bartender in like all this whole leather outfit that his children picked out for him because his children have a good sense of humor. But his gym teacher is there, and his gym teacher is a purported BDSM guy. And his death scene, being all strung up in the showers, is probably the first personality trait themed murder in the film. Because in the first one, it's all Freddy's just killing you, and he's making it look like an accident. In the third one, everything is just like, oh, here is the thing you like, and here it is ironically killing you. This is the thing he likes ironically killing him. but he's a jerk and played by Marshall Bell, so we don't really care that much. But then you start noticing other things, like Jesse has a sign on his bedroom door. It says no bad checks, but he has altered it to read like no fat chicks. But the fat part is really small, so it just reads as no chicks. And we see that door as Lisa shows up when he's cleaning his bedroom and dancing around fairly erotically to Touch Me All Night Long. It's worth noting that at the time, the actor Mark Patton was in the closet. He is out of the closet now, quite famously in a whole documentary called Scream, Queen, where it's a documentary about how this movie negatively affected his life and career, even though he seems to be embracing it more now. But it's also like how he is the first male Scream Queen, which maybe, I mean, Bruce Campbell in the first Evil Dead movie, that guy's got a good scream. But we'll give it to you, Mark. Don't worry about it. But again, these are the subtler things. The more obvious things are whenever Jesse feels or expresses any urge towards Lisa, Freddy comes out. Most notably when they're making out in the pool shed during Lisa's party, and it's like, we're finally gonna do this. And he's getting into it, and then all of a sudden, this prehensile, elongated Freddy tongue comes out, and he has to run away and get away from it. And and before that, when Lisa's trying to convince him to stay, I love the way he just says, "I'm not into this," and it's like, yeah, Jesse, we know, we wish you did, because then it would be easier for everybody. But so then he goes to Grady's house, because where else would he go? Why would he go home? He goes to Grady's house and Grady's bedroom. And Grady has a big poster of Lamal, that the Neverending Story singer in the background, which I guess was a thing. One of the more crucial scenes is that cafeteria scene where not only is Grady trying to turn off the girl, he's really trying to get Jesse to open up to him and confide in me. I want to be your friend. We can do everything. We can help each other. And then when Jesse spurns him, he storms off in the middle of the cafeteria. It's fun listening to every one of Grady's lines in the bedroom scene as sort of like a fortune cookie. The old thing where it's like whenever you get a fortune cookie, read your fortune and then add the words in bed afterwards, and your fortune is even better. Every single thing that Grady says, you could put the words, unless you're into it, and it would make the character so much better. Once again, Jesse has his conflicted dreams, and then Freddy comes out and, in horror movie terms, consummates his love for Grady by murdering him through a door. And it's terrible. But then Jesse freaks out again and leaves and goes back to the party. Once again, Lisa is trying to comfort him, and Jesse's not having any of it. And so Freddy comes out and starts murdering every other person at the party. Not including Schneider, the gym teacher at the beginning. There are 9 confirmed kills at this party, and possibly 4 others that they probably got killed, but you're not exactly sure. But so once again, in Gozu, we have 2 people or 1.5 die. It depends on whether or not Ozuki really died. And this one we get 10 as a result of Jesse not being able to come to grips with himself earlier in the film. And it's kind of nuts because much like in the first Nightmare on Elm Street, I love how Nancy never wakes up. And that's the big terrifying thing about that movie for me. In this one, I'm not entirely sure Jesse ever wakes up. There's a lot of good ambiguity as to whether Jesse is actually turning into Freddy Krueger or if Jesse's just going nuts and murdering people. Because up until the pool party scene, nobody that sees Freddy lives to tell the tale, and everybody's freaking out as if something supernatural has happened. So it could be. But after that, after Freddy leaves the pool, who knows what exactly happens? Because maybe Lisa wins him over with the power of heterosexual love, even though, after like the evil Freddy parts melt away, Jesse does not look thrilled and happy and confident about the future, even though like in other movies, I've seen people covered in much more goo just like embrace and be so happy. But Jesse is apparently free of Freddy, and then like it feels like it's like the next Monday he's going back to school, riding the bus, even though at minimum he should be implicated in like 10 murders. Or maybe not, unless they did see Freddy. But either way, he's going to, like, it doesn't make any sense, which makes me think that it's more of a dream. And he's got bandages on his wrists, which is weird because he didn't really suffer any injuries on there. But it makes me think, like, maybe he tried to kill himself in some other version of the script. But supposedly everything is fine, and Jesse is embracing heterosexuality and driving off into the future when Freddy's hand comes out of Lisa's friend just to show, hey, guess what? This is never going to happen. You're never going to be straight. It's always going to be a thing. And now Mark Patton is screaming at the top of his lungs. And man, to his credit, Mark Patton has an incredible shrill scream. Like it just pierces all of the blood vessels and everything. And it should be noted that like Jesse's home life is adorably like Leave It to Beaver with Clu Gulager as the dad that doesn't get anything and just thinks that Jesse needs a swift kick in the ass and appears to be unemployed. Like you never see him going to work, even though Jesse is going off to school and he's incompetent about like fixing things. The mom at least recognizes that Jesse is going through a thing. They're not equipped to handle it, and they need to get him help for it, which is very progressive for the 80s. Like, I love that. It's like, hey, you need help. There's nothing wrong with needing help. We can't give you the help. Let's find somebody that can give you the help so that, like, not ship you away or anything, or not like, oh, you're irretrievable and we need to hide something. It's like, hey, let's figure this out together. And Jesse is being closed-minded because, it's hard to come out when you're in high school. It's tricky. Jesse suffers from the terrible combination of not wanting to come out of the closet to himself and also living in a haunted house, which the house is haunted at this point. I finally came up with a good reason for what's going on with the door to the house, because in the first Nightmare on Elm Street film, the house 1428 Elm Street has like the green roof, white siding, and then the blue door, which the mom famously gets pulled through at the end. And then from part 2 on, the door is very prominently red. And it's there's no in-story explanation for it presented, which it's fine. It's just, okay, now the door is red now. It's because it's Freddy's house now. Like, it's one of those goofy things. Freddy had no connection to that house in particular until Nancy kicked the shit out of him at the end of the first Nightmare on Elm Street. And so it's kind of fun to think about how he is trapped in that house now. Even though, like, he has control, he can move all around the dreams of the Elm Street kids. As much as the boiler room is his home, this physical house is also his, that he is haunting, because that is where he was defeated. And finally, we have Nightbreed, written and directed by Clive Barker, and then eventually, many, many years after it was released in theaters, actually released in the way it was supposed to, with the Cabal cut, the director's cut, which actually makes the movie make sense, and it's so much better. This is the movie that Alejandro Jodorowsky described as the first truly gay horror fantasy epic, and boy howdy it is. And like with this one, it is very important to keep in mind that Clive Barker was an openly gay man at the time of the writing and the making of the film, and he's been out and proud for, man, so many decades. God bless that man. Love Clive Barker so much. Boone, Aaron Boone, played by Craig Schaefer, has terrible dreams and nondescript psychological issues. And he had been treated in the past by a psychiatrist named Philip K. Decker, played by David Cronenberg. David Cronenberg, the director, plays the psychiatrist bad guy of this film, which makes it just a twofer for me. This one, it's so much like the metaphor is much stronger in terms of you being a homosexual is a thing, is likened to being a monster, which considering how strong anti-gay sentiment was at the time of the writing of the story Cabal, and then the movie, it's not hard to imagine people internalizing those feelings. But Aaron feels wrong, even though he has a lovely girlfriend named Lori, who in the director's cut gets to sing, and she's awesome. As it turns out, Philip K. Decker is a mass murderer who goes around murdering people with what he deems are physical deformities of some sort. Really, like in the opening sequence where he's murdering all the people, I mean, they're just short and fat. It's terrible. And, you know, it's even worse because, like, in the short scene that you see before the nice family gets murdered, they're like, no, we love being the way we are because there's nothing wrong with us. We're awesome. Because, again, Clive Barker is great. But nope, Decker murders them because they have the sin of being different. And then he starts pinning all of his murders on Boone, feeding him drugs to make him believe that he's crazy, which, again, tying back to our werewolf thing, not unlike what happened to Michael Landon in I Was a Teenage Werewolf. Boone had gotten it in his head that he would be safe in a town called Midian up in the north. This is all taking place in Canada, by the way. Because Midian is where the monsters live and all your sins are forgiven. And Boone makes his way up there and is told by the actual monsters that are living there, it's like, you're not one of us, but I'm still gonna eat you. And he gets bitten and of course turns into one, you know, after he is murdered by the police at the behest of Decker. As a result, Boone he dies and is reborn a la like a vampire and is now something of a monster and is welcome with open arms into Midian, because Midian is where the monsters live and Midian is the most accepting community ever and everybody seems very happy down there. And by down there, I mean Midian is a vast array of underground catacombs beneath a cemetery that functions like a town. A more recent comparable thing, think of the troll market in Hellboy 2, The Golden Army, which I gotta believe Guillermo del Toro was taking like a whole bunch of cues from this movie in making that. Laurie keeps trying to track down Boone because, again, he died. He was taken to the morgue, and then he got up and left. And so we have to find this body. Laurie goes back to Midian, shenanigans ensue, and both Laurie and, unfortunately, Decker are made aware of the existence of Midian. And so Decker, finding the mother lode of physical deformities, riles up the local militia, led by Charles Hayde from Altered States. And they go as just the mother of all lynch mobs to destroy this underground haven for the lost and the dispossessed. And what follows is just a gigantic battle. Like it was cut to ribbons in the original film, but in the restored version, this is an epic fight scene. Just think of like the Ewok village fight, but if it were R-rated and, you know, you could actually murder people in the film. It's graphic, it's terrifying. There are monsters. The designs of these monsters are so good. But really what it comes down to is both Boone and Decker really needed to not only admit to themselves that they were gay, but they were also desperately in love with each other. Or at the very least, Decker is definitely in love with Boone. Whether or not Boone is in love with Decker, I don't know, because at the end of it, Laurie becomes Nightbreed as well. So I kind of like how it kind of parallels Minami's journey in Gozu in terms of like, maybe I'm not gay, maybe I'm just bisexual. I have like a wider spectrum of attraction that can include all things. But what it can't include is closed-minded assholes, because Decker is a monster, but doesn't want to accept that he's a monster as well. And so big fights. And at the end of the day, the entire town of Midian is destroyed. Like, I don't know what the kill count is in terms of like humans that are killed justly, because hey, they went to an underground town that has children in it and started chucking dynamite. So all of them need to die. And then all the poor Nightbreed that end up getting murdered in the ensuing battle. But my God, like Boone and Decker because they cannot accept who they are and or who they are to each other, end up destroying an entire society. Like, Nightbreed was fine. Like, the movie was okay, but man, the restored version, it actually makes sense. Characters have arcs and conclusions, and everything is satisfying. And god damn it, I wish there was a sequel to this restored version, because it was so good now. To everybody out there, try to like make peace with who you are, whatever that may be, and once you make peace with who you are, you'll be much better equipped to deal with the rest of the world, while at the same time, everybody's journey is their own and there are no real wrong choices. So you do you. Just make sure that you're not inadvertently causing the supernatural and or occult deaths of those around you. So, Dude, You're Just Gay, horror movies, Gozu, Nightmare on Elm Street Part 2, Freddy's Revenge, and Nightbreed, parentheses, The Cabal Cut. And happy Halloween. And I hope I see you guys next week.